Hey gang, Mark Sweeney here from Austin Dental Spa in beautiful, cool fall weather, Austin, Texas. This is Austin Dental Spa behind me. If you've tuned in before, you know what's about to happen. We call this Wisdom Wednesday. We've been doing it for about 7 years now, every Wednesday about this time. I try to bring you some of the latest, greatest scientific, not always about dentistry, sometimes just about overall health and ways you can improve your life. Today is no different. You also know, if you've tuned in before, that we have a different theme every month. And this is November, or as I'm calling it, No Shave November. I'll get to that in just a second. But our theme for this month is Harvest Your Happiness, because we're in harvest season now with November, and I cannot believe we're in November already, and Thanksgiving is just around the corner. I've actually already seen a couple of Christmas ads on TV interspersed among all the crazy political ads, which I'm glad won't be going on anymore. Speaking of which, I saw a few people today that were in kind of lousy moods, and they said it had something to do with some election or something last night. But we're going to talk about that today. It's a brand new study that has come out of Finland, and we're going to talk about ways that you can positively influence your mood, which about half the country needs right now. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about No Shave November. I've been doing this for about 16 years. It was actually started almost 30 years ago by a couple of Australians who decided to grow mustaches in honor of their friend who had just died of cancer. And so they decided every November they're going to, in Australia down under, they call a mustache a mo. They just don't finish the word. They just call it hey, nice mo. So they decided to call it Movember. And that's how November kind of got selected as the month. By the time it got around the world into the United States, it had become, hey, grow out your facial hair in honor of someone who has died of cancer. And 16 years ago, I lost a friend, a dentist friend out in Oakland, California, to undiagnosed prostate cancer. And so several of us around the country that were friends of Derek's decided we're going to not shave in November in his honor. I think I may still be the only one actually still doing it. But so as the month goes on, you'll enjoy each Wednesday seeing all this become even more straggly. By the end of the month, I start looking kind of like a college professor or something. But anyway, we're going to talk about harvesting your happiness. And this first version in November, we're going to talk about a study that just came out of Finland, like I mentioned before. It wasn't a real big study. In fact, I'm surprised it got published at all. But it did get published. Newsweek picked it up. It got published in the journal PLOS Biology. Now, I'm not sure what the PLOS stands for. Probably something Finnish. But anyway, in Finland, they did this study. Now, they only had one participant. Usually I just kind of reject these kind of studies. But this I found fascinating because I've seen studies where they've done brain scans where they can actually measure, while your brain's still inside your head, thankfully, brain activity. Now this study did it, but they do it just like a moment in time. Usually right after an event, they'd show somebody a picture or they'd put them through some experience, either scare them or excite them, and see what areas of the brain got stimulated. This study went far beyond that, but they only had this one participant, so that makes the results a little bit suspect, but still, I think you'll find this was fascinating stuff. This one subject at this university in Finland, they tracked him over 5-month period. So that I found fairly significant. That's when it started getting my attention. They not only used brain scans, which have been around for a while, MRIs, where they can see what area the electrical activity is going on in the brain, but they also had this person wearing smart rings, which are things that monitor your sleep and your physical activity, and they had a smart watch that could monitor what was going on in this person's life. They never said whether it was a male or a female. They just said it was only one subject. They used smartphones to track this stuff. So they were tracking it routinely throughout the day instead of just a single brain scan. And again, over a 5-month period. So they just told the subject to live life as usual, to go about your normal routines. And after 5 months, here's what they found. They found that there are 2 distinct brain patterns that are responding to certain behaviors. One is very short term, and that's the ones we already sort of knew about from those brain scans in the early days. This lasted less than a week. But they found a second brain response that was long-term waves in the brain that lasted up to 15 days. That's 2 weeks. And so they found that the short-term waves showed rapid responses to behaviors like struggling to focus after a poor night's sleep. We're going to get to sleep in a little bit too. The long-term waves were more gradual, lasting effects of specific behavior, particularly in areas of the brain tied to attention and memory, which the older you get, the more you start paying attention to stuff like that. And the brain continued to perform these waves for up to 2 weeks after some event. So the implications from these scientists that studied this were that our decisions and actions can affect us for much longer than we ever had thought possible, up to 2 weeks. The good news is, just the same way that a bad night's sleep can negatively affect our brain and mood, good decisions like working out, they found that on this one subject, that doing good things like working out, getting a good night's sleep, had an effect that lasted up to 2 weeks with these longer wave brain activities. So the implication, and the study again was done on just one person, but I hate to keep hammering that home, but most scientific minds would reject any study that only involved one subject. But this one, I thought, had some far-reaching implications. I'm sure they're going to continue to study this, but just think, something you did 2 weeks ago could possibly be affecting your mood right now. So some of those people that were in crappy moods today because of what happened yesterday might be feeling kind of lousy about the world for the next 2 weeks, or maybe the next 4 years. Who knows? So anyway, think of something positive, do something good for yourself today, and see if you can neutralize that and maybe even have a more positive effect on your mood for the next 2 weeks. So I brought up sleep, and I'm going to segue into that. If you've tuned in before, you know I always give a health tip at the end, and my health tip this week has to do with sleep. We have 5 different things that can help you have a better night's sleep. And 2 of them seem kind of contradictory, but I think you'll get what I'm talking about. First, number 1 is get on a schedule and try to stick to it. Try to go to bed at the same time every night. Try to do the same activities right before you go to bed. For me, of course, being a dentist, it's brushing my teeth and turning out the lights. So they said a schedule, just try to stick to the same thing instead of going to bed early one night and late another night, and your body gets a little confused. Number 2, create a comfortable, restful sleep space. So, if you like blackout curtains, shut out the light in the room, wear one of those masks, find what works for you, and then make it as comfortable as you can possibly make it. You've got some control over creating your environment. Don't go to bed hungry. Now, this is an interesting one, these next two. This is number 3. Don't go to bed hungry, because scientists have found that if you're on an empty stomach, you don't sleep as well. Now, number 4 is just the opposite of that. Don't eat too much right before you go to bed, because that, too much or too little, like a lot of things in life, have the same effect, the same negative effect. If you go to bed with a full stomach, it can cause restlessness as your body is digesting that food while you're trying to go to sleep. I've heard from nutritionists that you're also more likely to gain weight because you're not actively burning calories up and around doing things while your digestive system is working overtime. And so I don't know that for a fact, but I have heard that from multiple sources, that you shouldn't eat right before you're going to go to bed. And so do something for a while after you've eaten your last meal of the day. And number 5 shows up on every list of every body improving thing. Guess what it is? Exercise. Exercise helps your body, speed up, burn calories. It helps you stay thin. But exercise is also good for the sleep, because it kind of tires you out and makes you more likely to go to sleep quicker and have a more restful sleep. So try those 5 things, introduce them into your life, and see if you can get a better night's sleep tonight than you probably did last night, if your candidate didn't win. And so we will see you next week for another episode of Wisdom Wednesday, and we will talk about harvesting your happiness. See you then.